Body fluids, of course, come in many different guises. We talk in terms of semen very clearly being very significant in many cases, particularly sexual offences. But there are many other body fluids,
Yeah.
and blood often becomes a very significant part. How strong are the elements of body fluids?
Um, well, I think they're very strong. I mean, being able to say what the body fluid are is crucial. As you mentioned, semen. So if we get a DNA profile and we can't say it came from the semen, then how can that person be convicted of rape if we can't say DNA came from the semen? So it's absolutely crucial that body fluid element. Though it's not just about trying to find a source for DNA, but it's trying to attach its significance. And the same with blood. So if you've got a fight between two friends, you may find DNA on them just from being friends, just coming to contact with each other, shaking hands, just being there. But if they have a fight and one of the friends beats the other one up, finding the victim's blood on the suspect becomes much more significant rather than just say just DNA in general. So if we can say that the DNA came from the blood, that is much more significant in the court of law than just saying his DNA. And one particular body fluid where to challenge is vaginal material. And so this is common in sexual assault. So not just so we can look at penile swab. So if someone had sexual intercourse, the vaginal epithelial cell on the penis. So we can swab the penis and see if that came from the victim. Can be on if someone's wearing a condom, you can swab the outside of the condom to see the epithelial cells from the victim as well as steaming inside the condom. And probably one of the more common non-rape sexual assault is digital penetration where somebody inserts their fingers, and what you can get is vaginal material under the fingernails. So what we can do is take fingernail scraping and DNA profile. So vaginal material, vaginal fluid is a very common body fluid encountered in sexual assault. But one of the problems we have is we can't actually detect it, or at least we can't detect it in the UK yet. So all we can do is say the DNA from the victim is under the fingernails, but is it from the vaginal material, or is it from saliva, or the skin cells? So if you share a house with somebody, how likely do you think it is that you've got DNA from the person you share a house with under your fingernails? And I don't mean just from scratching, just from touching, just generally. And we don't really know. So we don't know what the chances are of having DNA from somebody else under their fingernail, just in general terms with background levels. But if we say, so if you've got two people who are sharing a house and one got really drunk and passed it out and the other one digitally penetrate and you've got DNA under their fingernails, if we can't say it came from vaginal material, it can't be convicted. And I'm aware of a number of cases that have not proceeded to trial because of that issue, because we don't know where the DNA came from. So we couldn't identify the body fluid.
Why is that? Are you saying other countries have developed so that they do know what vaginal fluid is, but we just
The
haven't yet?
technology, yes, the technology exists. So the technology exists. It's a technology that I have in my lab. So it's a technology I've had in my lab for a few years now. The Netherlands would use it in casework, New Zealand would use it in casework, and I'm aware of some other countries having it, but I don't know if they've used it in casework yet. But I think in Britain, or certainly in England and Wales, we're a long way from doing that. And when I speak to various people within forensic science providers, they're not aware that we can do this. All they know is that they can't do it, but they're not aware that the technology in general exists. And I think that reflective of the way the forensic science sector in the UK is at the moment.
And let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, when I was in the police service, we had the brilliant forensic science service at Lambert, which we would often visit. I remember many times going up there, taking a ticket, sitting down and handing over whatever the material, the evidence I had to be examined by the forensic science service. Of course, they no longer exist. It's now all been privatized and set out. Do you think that's been detrimental to the criminal justice system?
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of someone who was in the FSS, in the Lambert lab, at
Oh,
around the
you were
time,
there, were you?
I was there, but between 2002 and 2007. So I was there when it changed from a Home Office executive agency to a government-owned company, and I left just before it all started shutting down. So probably one of the first back to leave the sinking ship, as it were. But it was, so I've seen the change. It went from the service you were probably used to. We had a one-stop shop of
It was
things. So
brilliant.
he
Brilliant.
came in with a case, gave it to us, and then we would discuss with you what we want to do, what you do. We come up with a strategy, and you sign up on that, and we give you a quote. Let's say how much it's going to cost, and you sign up on that as well. And we do it. We write a report, and we will. Now, if you wanted DNA, one person would do it. You want to buy one. It was all a one-stop shop. It was great. But since the privatisation, what happened is a lot of people had to tender out for vendor services. They went out to what was probably most cost effective. And there are a lot of companies set up, a lot of companies closed down, a lot of vendor scientists moving around, and we ended up with a big fragmentation. And so what we ended up with is if you want your DNA doing, you have to send some DNA to one lab. If you want a fibre doing, you have to send that to another lab. If you want a fingerprints doing, there's a special recovery that has to be either done in-house or sent off to a third lab. And so it ended up being quite fragmented. And I think as a result of that, some discipline kind of dropped off a bit. So, for example, fibres is getting a bit of a challenge at the moment. There could be a skills gap being generated in fibres because fibres is not cost effective. Fibre analysis is time consuming and expensive, and it's not great profit. So people are reluctant to offer that. And the people who are fibre desperate are now retiring, and there's nobody coming in to replace them. So in a few years' time, we may have to have a real issue with finding someone who can do fibres work. So yeah, I mean, obviously I might be slightly biased here because I was FSS myself, but yeah, I do think it's been a big problem.
I'm incredibly biased. I was a user of the service, and I think that they were brilliant compared to what exists now. And I talked to police officers up and down the country, and it is a real demand upon them having to externally source that and get it right. And there are some brilliant laboratories out there, don't get me wrong, there are some brilliant ones, but it's obviously all very cost driven now. Yeah. And as a result of that, sadly, the services are not always as good as they are.